It's the Fitness Lab Pittsburgh podcast, a new episode every week. A podcast about movement, part of making your life complete. Fitness Lab Pittsburgh, aka FitLabPGH, brings you interviews with people in the Pittsburgh area who understand movement is part of what makes life complete. Looking for a new movement idea or just want to hear interesting stories about people who make movement a priority? This is the podcast for you. Whether you consider the gym, dojo, or fitness studio your third place, or just want to learn more about movement, activity, and fitness to enhance your life, give FitLabPGH a listen. We interview locals in the Pittsburgh area who make Pittsburgh a great place to move. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Subscribing is free and gives you notifications when we release new episodes. Each podcast episode will be long enough to pique your interest and short enough to hold your attention. Have an idea for an episode? Know somebody we should interview? Or just want to connect with us? Drop us an email, fitlabpgh@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter or Instagram at FITLABPGH. Already a fan of FitLabPGH? Check out our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast for movement professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers weekly interviews with movement professionals featuring topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. We look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you enjoy our next interview, starting now. FitLabPGH and our sister podcast, Moving to Live, firmly believe movement is a lifestyle, not just an activity, because movement is part of what makes your life complete. If you like what we do, please leave us some feedback on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget, every Thursday on our website and social media, we do a FitLab Pittsburgh features with two-legged and four-legged movers, and every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we do a 1-minute movement tip and lifestyle hack video. Whatever you do today, make sure you get some movement. FitLabPGH back with another podcast interview. A big thank you to Reed & Co. for once again opening up their back room. When we interviewed somebody a few years back, Reed was generous enough to say anytime you need to use the back room here in Lawrenceville, let me know and I'll open it up to you. So if you haven't checked out Reed & Co., please give them a check out. As you've heard before on FitLab Pittsburgh, some of our guests we find from recommendations, some of them we find from, and I say this in a positive way, stalking them on the internet. And I think today's guest popped up on our Instagram feed, which seems to happen with a lot of guests in the Pittsburgh area as people start to be more aware of Instagram and its benefits. We are with Niki Campbell of the Flourish group. And I think initially when I saw it, I wasn't sure exactly what it was until I then stalked her on LinkedIn and said, oh, okay, that makes sense. So Niki, thank you for taking time to talk to FitLabPGH.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I think the first question to always ask, you meet somebody in an elevator, they see the Flourish group, they say, what do you do? What's your elevator spiel of 30 to 45 seconds?
Okay. So when I do meet people and they do ask, my response is I'm taking what I did for 20 plus years, which is communications, marketing, PR, and combining it with my second act, which is a new-ish career in health and wellness. And flourish means, anything that's nurtured will flourish. And so that's kind of my mantra or my motto. And so whether it's your company or it's your health, and they're very interconnected, how healthy you are can determine how healthy your business is or your career. Whether it's one or the other, I can help people become healthier.
And I know one of my favorite questions to ask as a non-Pittsburgh native is, are you a Pittsburgh native? If you are, why are you still here? If not, what brought you to Pittsburgh and why are you still here?
So I'm a Western Pennsylvania native. I grew up in Butler County, and it's just where I know for sure I want to be. We moved away for 3 years. We lived in North Carolina. People thought we were absolutely crazy when we were told I was for my job and I had the opportunity to move back. And when we decided to do it, our friends in North Carolina couldn't believe it. Our friends here in Pittsburgh couldn't believe that we would choose to come back. But this is absolutely home to us, regardless of how many sunny days we have. This is where we feel we belong.
And I'm not sure how the Weather Service classifies sunny days, but as somebody who spends part of almost every day of the year outside, it really is a rare day in Pittsburgh when there isn't sun out for at least a few minutes. I know even last Friday when we had a snowstorm, I was out with the dogs, and there was at about 9:30, 9:45, there was 15 to 20 minutes of sunlight, which was really weird as the snow was coming down also.
Yeah, it is, you make of it, you I guess you take from it what you can. But we love the quality of life. We love the people. And we love North Carolina. There was nothing wrong with living there. This is our home. And my husband's not even from here. He's from New York, but he's been here since college and is in his early 50s now, which he'll kill me for saying. But he feels like this is home too.
And I know one of the things that people often who are in the wellness arena, there are people who are either hardcore or they've been active all their life. I know we're in Reed and Company, and when we interviewed Reed, he said, were you always active? And he said, no, not really, but I grew up on an organic flower farm, so we worked in the fields, which is activity.
Right.
So I'm curious, as a kid, were you active? Did you find that later in college or post-college? And if you were active as a kid, was it mom and dad saying, get the heck out of the house? Or was it mom and dad saying, you're going to do these various organized activities and we're going to sit there and watch you, or just drop you off?
Yeah. So I was a child of the 70s. So it was get the heck out of the house and don't come back until it's dinner time. But I will say my grandfather had a farm. My father's family owned restaurants. So I would say we were active. I grew up around people who were hard workers and so therefore active. So I didn't grow up around people who worked in offices and not that there's anything wrong with that, but people who were moving and working all day, every day. So I guess I was around it, but it was never, I didn't do any real sports. I think I played t-ball, that type of thing. I didn't do any sport until high school. Was a high school cheerleader. I hated gym class. I would make any excuse not to run the mile. So I really didn't find fitness until after I had my children. And then I didn't find it as a career until I was early to mid 40s. So I guess I am a late bloomer, but I've always been around people who appreciate being outside and kind of, having movement throughout the day. So I didn't come from a organized sports background, but it was encouraged to be outside and doing something.
And I'm curious, what was it that brought you to fitness after having your children? I know we interviewed a few months back Valerie Berkner, who's now at Venture Outdoors, and she got into running just recently, within the last 6 years or so, just because she and her husband wanted to support something that her daughter was doing. And now she says, I can't imagine not running and doing things like that. So what was it that you said, I'm going to do something fitness rather than just working hard?
So it's so funny because I was thinking about it because, I did my homework. I listened to your previous episodes and I was thinking about it on the way in and like really where I may have started or where the light switch flipped. So it was I had my daughter very young. I was 20. And so I remember being in school. I went to Slippery Rock University and going to the gym. That was my first time of like going to the gym. And I found the NordicTrack machine. I don't know if you remember those, but I loved that machine. And it was just funny that was kind of the first exercise equipment I had used, the first time being in a gym. It was a student gym. It was really, old stuff and, not very sophisticated. And what I tell my clients now is that I was the stereotypical, I guess, mom who worked out. Like I was working out at the time, I didn't realize it, for the wrong reasons. Like it was like, oh, I had a baby and I have extra weight and that's why you work out. Fast forward, 20 some years, that's not why I work out. And I think, but however I got there, I'm so glad I did, because what kind of evolved over the years, and I'd say from the time my firstborn and then to when my son was born, it was like the elliptical at the gym, or it was kind of this, don't want to say easy way of exercising, but it was convenient. It was accessible. I didn't challenge myself. I didn't run. I had never had any interest in running until I met somebody at a gym who said, we're training a bunch of people to do a half marathon. I was 32. And I really liked this lady. She was a group fitness instructor. And I was like, okay, I'll do this. And so now 15 years later, I still call myself a runner. I use air quotes because I'm a very slow runner, but it wasn't something where like, I felt like, oh my gosh, this is what I have to do. It's just kind of what society told us to do. You have extra weight, so you go to the gym. And now for me, 15 years later, it's more important from a long-term health perspective because I have some autoimmune conditions and things like that. So I wish there was some, kind of pivotal magic moment, but it just kind of evolved.
And you've already identified that you have some degree of coordination because anybody who remembers the NordicTrack, it's not something that you can just hop on and use it. I know my parents had one that had acted as a clothes hanger until I said, oh, I'll take it. And it's really hard to use.
Let me tell you, I lost that baby weight very quickly because it's a complete total body exercise machine. And there wasn't any motor to it.
Yeah, the coordination required to use that rhythmically for 20 plus minutes, it'll wear you out.
Yeah. So there are times when I think like, oh, I wonder, do they have like an updated version of it? Because it's a great workout.
I know I'm one of those people who was active as a kid, not really, I played sports, but most of the people that I've had long-term relationship with friends, 20, 30 years, you can get together after 20 or 30 years and you're still doing the same thing. So it really is a lifestyle. We say movement is a lifestyle, not just an activity. To go from somebody who was active but maybe not doing quote unquote workouts or movement as a lifestyle to saying, I'm going to go to the gym to running marathons, half marathons. Did you have friends from, I'll say this in air quotes, the earlier life who look at you and said, Niki, you're just crazy. You're going to kill yourself or you're going to hurt yourself moving so much?
Yeah. So yes, there are friends from college who to this day, will say to me, you wear me out. Like I see what you're doing on Facebook and I see that you're visiting, the Peloton studio in New York and taking classes with these instructors. They're like, you're really into this. So yeah, there are people who think I'm a little crazy, but there are also people that I feel like, I would never say I've inspired anybody, but like who are like, wow, I know her. If she can do that, if she can run a half marathon, maybe I can run a half marathon. So I feel like there's probably a lot of people who think I'm crazy, but there's probably enough that have, kind of gotten up and done something that makes the crazy worth it.
And I know one of the things that people who are active movement-wise all of their life, maybe they grew up playing sports, maybe mom and dad did sports, maybe they did these lifetime activities, whether it was hiking, whether it was running, whether it was just normal. Mom and dad are going to the gym, and I was there when I was 5 years old because they dropped me off for daycare or something like that. And then there's people like yourself who found the organized movement rather than saying go out and work in the fields or guess what, you're working 3 shifts in the restaurant. What is it that keeps you going? Because I know when you start very young and you recognize, boy, this is actually a lot of fun. You said you hated gym class.
I know, that's terrible. And my husband was a gym teacher, so it's
and trying, saying, well, I don't want to run. How do you keep doing it, or what is it that makes you keep doing it? Because I know a lot of people don't follow that adage, movement is a lifestyle. I know from what you've described and chatting with you prior to starting recording, it's like, this is just normal. I go to New York City. It's like, oh, there's a Peloton studio. I can go there.
Right. So I think what keeps me going is, like I said, it's less about the outward facing results of exercise for me. I am a very, very much a type A personality. I might not be very competitive in terms of sports, but in my career and in life in general, I'm very type A. I'm very competitive. And that can be stressful. And I've always found that exercise, and I'm a writer by trade. So for 20 years prior to doing what I'm doing now, I would write and I would write speeches. the mental and the emotional benefits of exercise is hands down what has kept me motivated. If I don't have the opportunity to exercise for more than 2 days in a row, I'm miserable. I'm just angry, cranky, whatever you want to call it. And my husband in the same way. Like, we both feel like we just got back from vacation and we worked out while we were there. But, you don't always do you don't really go hard on, on vacation. And we came home, the first things out of our mouths were like, oh, I can't wait to get back on the bike. I can't wait to, to really to be in my space and be able to exercise the way that I know my body and my mind needs. So that, hands down, I will exercise until I physically cannot anymore, just for that.
I know I was mentioning to you before we started recording, one of my favorite podcasts has been with the sleep researcher, Ian Dunnigan. And one of the things that he mentioned during the interview was it's pretty much a requirement for him to move some way for an hour most days of the week. It doesn't necessarily have to be running. It might be walking. It might be calisthenics. And he said he does not do that for physical. He does that for mental outlook. I interviewed another guy, Sam Brassfield, who said, he's in the military in a command position. He said he goes for runs with his executive officer and they talk about problems. Most of my good ideas come when I'm out running with my dogs or riding my bike. And I think many people underestimate what you've said. It's not just, okay, I lost some weight or I'm in better physical fitness. It's like, I feel calmer. And I'm curious, when you were writing the speeches or when you came up with the idea for the Flourish group, did that by any chance come during a movement activity, or did you often write speeches in your mind while you were moving?
Yes. So I will say exercise has always contributed to the creative process for me. I would, so the job that I had where I did the most speech writing, when you write a speech for someone, you really have to, well, one, they have to trust you and that you're going to capture their voice and their personality and the words that they would use. And so you spend a lot of time with these people. And I can remember, I would travel with them to the meetings and help them with their presentations. And I would inevitably, the morning of, after being on the treadmill in the hotel gym, I would show up at rehearsal and be like, wait, I have this great idea. I thought about, why don't we say it like this? Because in my mind, and many times I would have, my iPad there on the treadmill and I would be even just walking or sitting on a recumbent bike, just kind of flipping through the speech. And that's when I would have, and I know there's science behind it, but I would have these like moments where I was like, oh, this is what he should say here, or this is what this is the point she should make, or the story she should tell. So definitely in that sense, the idea for the Flourish group, the word flourish it's just stuck in my head because anything can grow. You can plant something, even here in Western Pennsylvania, you can plant something and I'm terrible, and it's awful because my dad is, he has a horticulture background, but I kill any plant that we have. But things will grow despite some crappy conditions. But to flourish means you have all the right things in place. So when I think about somebody's health, and to flourish, from a wellness standpoint, it's your mental health is in the right place, your emotional health, your financial health, all of those things play into how you're operating as a human. And so to me, that was the word flourish just stuck in my head. And I worked with a branding company and they kept they would suggest other things, but I said, nope, this is it. Like, I got to figure out how it manifests itself. But this is the word for me.
We're talking with Niki Campbell of the Flourish Group. I'm curious, you described a few minutes ago how you, and I'll say this in air quotes, found movement or recognized that, hey, this could be an important part of my life after having kids. There's some people, men and women, who they find it, maybe it was the freshman 15 in college, or maybe somebody inspired them because,
right.
And that's what they do, is that becomes part of their life. And it's like, oh, this is Niki. She's a speechwriter, or she's a marketer. She does this. Oh, by the way, you should talk to her if you want to do a marathon. She's done some fun races, but you did a 180 and you did a career change.
Yeah.
Why or how did that come about?
So I traveled for my job. The last corporate job that I had was with a big food company. So I've always been in food and beverage in terms of kind of my background, and wrote speeches for their executives and traveled a lot. And in 2014, I was having just some crazy symptoms with my eyes, and my eye doctor kept trying to figure out why they were so dry. And it was just this kind of weird way that I came to find out that I had two autoimmune diseases. And one is rheumatoid arthritis, which is secondary to the primary one that I have, which is Sjogren's syndrome. But my grandmother had RA, and she had RA, severe RA. It was very much disabled by this disease. And as soon as I found out, I did, of course, Dr. Google and WebMD, I'm on there looking at all these things and really creating this just nightmarish narrative in my head about what's going to happen based on the fact that I remember my grandmother being in so much pain and being very unhealthy. And so I just really started to look into diet and exercise and traveling and having that lifestyle where you're up at 5 a.m. to get to the gym. And then you're still up at midnight because you've had a meeting all day, you've had dinner with, clients, then you've had drinks after dinner, and you're not getting back to your room until midnight. It occurred to me, I can't live this lifestyle. Even working out, hotel gyms are not going to cut it if I want to remain healthy and manage these two conditions. So I decided on my own to get the certifications because I really started to kind of live this lifestyle of there's a better way to eat. There's a better way to move. I really have to be thinking long term now, versus this, again, has nothing to do with weight. And so I started to look into it, and then I went through ACE to get my certifications. And it was funny because when I applied, they said, one of their, enrollment people got back to me and they said, you don't have any background in any kind of health sciences. You have an English degree. And I said, yeah, I know. And they said, well, I wanted to become a health coach. And they said, well, that's a more advanced certification. So because you don't have a health, any kind of a health degree, you're going to have to become a personal trainer first. And, I had my own kind of preconceived notions about what a personal trainer was, big guy in the gym, grunting and lifting really heavy weights. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I really want to do this. But I said, no, I know what I want to do. I really want this health coaching certification. So I did them simultaneously. And for someone who has taken general chemistry in college 20 years ago, taking, having to go back through an anatomy and physiology course book, they send you this book. And so it was, I don't know, it was almost like an out of body experience where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do these both at the same time. It'll be fine. I just have to pass the personal trainer's test first, and then I can sit for the health coaching. Did them both, passed with flying colors. And the more I got into it and the more I learned about the connection of movement and nutrition, I decided, because why not at 44, go back to school. So I'm in the dietetics program here at CCAC. So I'll be finishing that up this year. And I was like, this is what you're supposed to do. You've been told you're really good at motivating people. You've been told that, I would get messages from people I worked with, it's so great to see what, that you're always working out. What do you recommend? And I was like, now I have the credentials to be able to help people. Because before it would just be, oh, here's what I do. Maybe you should try that. Probably not the best advice, but what started with, I want to do this for myself, turned into, I need to do this for other people like me in particular, people who have very demanding jobs, travel for their careers, don't have kind of that typical 9 to 5, and you're able to go to the gym right after work. And so it just, I don't know, it kind of evolved, and I'm 47 now. So I think I started this at about 42. So 5 years, it's evolved pretty quickly. And I can't imagine doing anything else. It really is that life-changing.
It's interesting. You said two things that really struck a chord with me. I'm going to apologize because I cannot remember his name, but for one of our podcasts for FitLab Pittsburgh, we interviewed a functional medicine physician who's in Squirrel Hill, and we'll have a link in the show notes to that interview. But one of the things he said during the interview is too many people who are having a health problem, they're looking for this magic cure. I'm paraphrasing him, or this one thing that they can change. He said, health problems arise because of multiple stressors, and you may be able to handle stress A, B, C, and D, but then you add E on, and if you don't take away one of those other stressors, all those things build up. So I know I actually have a client who has rheumatoid arthritis, and talked to her quite a bit about things that set it off as far as diet, and et cetera. She has it quite severely. And one of the things I think so many people don't recognize is everything in your life is a stressor. It's how you deal with it and how you control it. The other thing that's interesting that struck a note with me is we've done 100 and somewhat, almost 200 podcast interviews, and it seems to be the people who really hit movement as a lifestyle and, I just want to be able to do this. I'm doing this for my health. It seems to be somewhere around the age of 35 or 40. That's when it's like, okay, I'm doing this not to be in shape or not because I want to lose weight, but because I want to be able to do the things I want to do basically up until the day I drop dead. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something, and one of the reasons I started moving to live in FitLab Pittsburgh, that's the minority of people in this country and the minority of people in Pittsburgh who think that way.
And I think it's because people get very overwhelmed with fitness. And I work mostly with women, almost exclusively with professional women. But most of them, they don't think that they have the ability, or they believe that and I think in one of your previous podcasts, somebody had talked about this. They believe if they're not at the gym for an hour every day, killing themselves in a HIIT workout or, some kind of advanced, spin class, whatever it might be, that it's not worth it. And so much of the coaching that I do, the majority of the coaching I do is more about lifestyles and behaviors and how to prioritize. And it's really interesting because all of the things that I've done in the past that I worked with executives has helped me coach other women and other professionals because I've lived that life and I understand it. And so when they're so caught up in their heads about, I couldn't possibly couldn't possibly do this an hour a day every day. And I always say, you don't have to. That's the beauty of it. So movement shouldn't be this burden. It should be something that fits in your lifestyle. And I think the person, whoever it was that you interviewed, said, I find time for it, and I've always said, if you can't do it on one of the days of the week, then that's okay. Then plan for it and say, okay, so Tuesdays are a terrible day, so I'm not going to work out that day. That's fine. There's so much guilt, and maybe more so with women, but there's so much guilt around, well, if I can't do it perfectly and, excessively, then never mind, I'm not going to. So that to me is kind of my passion point, is that I want to make this accessible. I don't want this to be a burden. I don't want anyone to feel like, ugh, I hate going to the gym. I mean, not everybody. There are days that I wake up and I'm like, I'm really tired. I don't want to do this today.
I know I'm reminded, one of the people we interviewed for Moving to Live, the sister podcast, is Sam Wood, who's a physical therapist who is a very, very talented trail runner. And one of the things that she said, she goes, I don't go hard most of the time. She goes, I go hard 3 or 4 times a year. The rest of the time I'm playing in the mountains. I mean, her place where she goes in the mountains around Colorado Springs where she lives. And I think a lot of people, especially with the social media and the ease of posting pictures and video, look how hard I'm working. And I think you've hit a nice point where you're saying, I'm not doing this for weight loss. I'm doing this for other health related reasons. You don't have to leave yourself in a pool of sweat with your joints hurting and your feet hurting. You mentioned you ran a half marathon. Not everybody has to run a half marathon. If you go out and take a walk, that can have a benefit. The other thing with people saying, I can't give an hour, I can't do this or that. I'm reminded, I had a dog with epilepsy who developed it at 4 and lived to 8. And one of the commitments I made is when she developed this, I'm going to make her have the best life possible. And we walked pretty much every day, or ran, or whatever. I called it fartlek because some days she'd feel better. And now, almost a year since she died, I'm starting to see Facebook memories. And what I'm reminded of is, as difficult and as stressful as it was having a dog with epilepsy that was having uncontrolled seizures, the joy that she got from being out and walking. So the days that, like when we had the polar vortex about a year ago, the pictures popped up last week, it's 10 degrees. She and my other dog wanted to go out. So we went in the woods, and just seeing that. So I think one of the things that people will say, well, I can't do that. Pick something that you really enjoy or that's fun. Like, I'm with my dogs an hour to an hour and a half most days in the woods. I don't look at that as a workout. That's just kind of a baseline. If I can get out on a bike, if I can do a run, if I do some listing, that's additional fitness. And I think people look at it the wrong way. Like you said, okay, I have to get an hour in. No, you don't. Just move more than you move now. And then maybe you've been moving for 10 minutes for the last 6 weeks or the last 6 months or the last year. And you go, I'd like to go a little farther. So just try to say, can I do a little bit more than I did most days of the week, rather than, oh God, I didn't move today and I ate bad food. I'm a horrible person.
Right. I always say exercise is not a punishment for what you didn't do or what you ate. So, I have clients who will say to me, oh, I had this, big birthday dinner last night. And you're talking to somebody who grew up with family who owned Italian restaurants. I'm like, food, and it's funny because I'm getting a nutrition degree, and I'll hear people say food is fuel. And yes, it is, but food is so much part of our lives. So I always say, are you seriously going to tell me you regretted having a lovely birthday dinner with your family? No, I'm not going to give you extra exercises for that. That is life, and you deserve to have a nice dinner. Now, if you're going to do that every day and not work out, yes, there are going to be some results of that behavior. Again, I go back to, it's behavior modification. It's just behavior, being aware of opportunities for movement. So like I'll say to friends of mine who have littler kids, you playing with your kids is exercise. You taking the dog for a walk is exercise. And now that we've got Apple Watches, I'm like, put it on other. That's my favorite. I have friends who at like neighborhood parties will look at me and say, if I just put it on other and like I'm dancing around, does that count? And I'm like, yes, it does. Dancing around counts. Walking your dog counts. It doesn't have to be. I went to a boot camp class for an hour 5 days a week. That's great if you want to go a couple of times. I really encourage people to look for the opportunities. 10 minutes, 3 times a day. If you can get that in, you're good.
I know the interesting thing with that, I have a Koros watch, which is another GPS watch, and I live on 4+ acres. So I've put it on before when I've done air quotes yard work, which is clearing stuff, or last fall, I finally organized my garage after 10 years with shelves. And over the course of 3 hours of organizing the garage and putting up shelves, I walked 3.5 miles.
Right.
It wasn't quote unquote, I was doing a workout, but it's like, yeah, I'm pretty tired afterwards because I'm lifting things and doing things. And I think too often people are just saying, well, I don't have time to go to the gym. Well, if you don't have time to go to the gym, you can buy a TRX trainer.
Right.
You can have kettlebells. Now, I don't expect everybody to be like me and have gymnastic rings in their living room, but if you have kids, they might like that. And it's really, I know some of the people we've interviewed with younger kids saying, now my kids want to go for a walk or a bike ride with mommy or daddy. And I think what people don't recognize is, as you may or may not have recognized, is the people who say, oh, you're so inspirational, Niki, or wow, I really enjoy hearing what you're doing on Facebook, is you're giving the message like, hey, this is a normal behavior. I'm not one of those crazy people who's going to climb Mount Everest and then go to Antarctica and run a marathon there.
Right. That is, you're never going to see that on Facebook from me.
Unless it's posed behind a set-up screen. Always curious when we talk to people for FitLab Pittsburgh, favorite movement activity that you've done in the past, or most interesting, or with close friends and you're kind of doing mutual brags, or you won't believe what I did.
Yeah.
And then would you do it again?
So I don't even remember what I, had said before, but Peloton, I have a Peloton bike. It is like I'm in the cult. I'm fully aware that it's crazy and that, it is what it is. So I will say that's my favorite. If somebody asks me truly though, like what's your favorite activity? I would say walking is probably my favorite activity because I can do that anywhere. I can do that at any time. It requires no equipment. It's very accessible. So that's probably, when in doubt, I'll just put on my shoes and go out for a walk. And it's funny, the exercise that I tried, I did not like. It's just not my personality. It was CrossFit. And a lot of people like it. As somebody who's, a woman in her 40s, who had never tried it until she was in her 40s, it just didn't speak to me. It just didn't. And I think that's the beauty of exercise, is that there's so much out there. So kettlebells is something I don't do, but I'm always interested in it. And I probably should do it more, or look into it more. But that's the beauty of all this. There is an exercise studio class method for everyone, for all abilities, for all. I mean, what you were just saying earlier about, somebody who's teaching people to kayak. I mean, there are so many opportunities. You will find your fitness. I truly believe that.
And I'm also curious, any movement activity that you have not tried yet that is kind of, at some point, I'm going to try it, or I'm going to force my husband to try it with my kids?
Yeah, you know what? I would love to do some kind of climbing. I don't think like outside, probably indoor climbing, but I am just in awe of people who can do any kind of climbing, or a very maybe extreme hike, to really, I love hiking. I like being outside. But yeah, climbing, I would like to challenge myself on a climbing wall, something that's a little bigger than like the kiddie one at the YMCA.
And we do have the climbing wall and Ascend here in Pittsburgh, both of which are good places. Or you can go to the REI on the south side and try the smaller wall to see if that's for you.
I might have to start there.
The other one I'd suggest for the climbing to see if you're doing it is Go Ape up in North Park. If you haven't done yet, that is phenomenally fun. Is it?
So I am a huge fan of North Park. So we live very close, 10 minutes, away. I walk there. We ride our bikes there. I feel like it's just such a great thing. We've got this park. And every time I walk past Go Ape, I think to myself, I wonder what that's about. I thought for a long time it was just for kids. So I will definitely have to check that out.
The nice thing about it is you clip in and it'll scare you, but you realize, if I fall, I'm going to fall like 2 feet.
Yeah.
And it really is a blast. We've been talking with Niki Campbell. She's been telling us about how she makes movement a lifestyle. We'll have some extensive show notes. Niki, thank you for telling us what the Flourish Group is and telling us your movement is a lifestyle story.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of FitLabPGH, brought to you by Moving to Live. Intro and exit music is Marathon Man by Jason Shaw. Check out the show notes for contact info for our latest guests, links to other information mentioned in the episode, and links to our sister podcast, Moving to Live. Moving to Live is a podcast about movement and exercise for professionals and amateur aficionados. Moving to Live offers topics from career development to coaching tips and education resources to advice for parents of student athletes. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Google Play, or check out our website for other subscription options. Your free subscription gets you notified when we release a new episode. Questions, comments, suggestions? Email us at fitlabpgh@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at fitlabpgh and like us on Facebook. If you enjoy our podcasts, please tell your friends about us and consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. Make FitLabPGH a go-to place to learn more about movement in the Pittsburgh area. Until next time, keep on moving.